Hey, welcome to the Bryan Hyde Show. I have a very special guest, actually a couple of very special guests joining me. But before I introduce them, let me just say 10 years ago, I was talking to a cowboy about about land issues and grazing rights and what our rights are, under the Constitution and what our God-given rights are. And I'm talking about Lavoy Finicum, who it turned out was a much bigger figure in my life and a much bigger figure in my heart than I ever thought he would be. Now, for those of you who know the story, Lavoy was shot to death in early January or in late January 2016. And uh, an injustice occurred, which unfortunately is continuing to this day, even though we're talking about events that happened, nearly 9 years ago. I want to welcome Jeanette Finicum, and she is joined by two of her daughters, Tierra Belle and also Tean. Welcome, Jeanette. It's been a while since we talked.
It has. It's been a long time. And thank you so much for having us on, Bryan.
Well, I wish we were just catching up to, see what's happening over the years, and I could ask, is there healing going on in your life, and have the scales of justice been balanced? But no, there's actually a really disturbing story that has just broken in the last few days about the FBI actually awarding the agents who participated in the roadblock that ultimately ended up being the excuse for taking Lavoy's life. They were awarded medals of bravery. What is the story there?
Yeah. Well, it looks like Kash Patel, and I really believe that he is not fully informed. I'm hoping that he's not fully informed because what they had listed as part of the reasons for these honors were because Lavoy Finicum rammed his truck into a federal vehicle and pinned an agent underneath Lavoy's truck, and that he was heading to a clandestine meeting. And that wasn't true because the people at Malheur were able to leave freely. They had been leaving pretty much every single day, whether to go into town or to go to these other meetings around the surrounding areas, and meet with people who wanted to hear about property rights and about the Constitution. And he was headed to John Day to meet with 300 people. It was a public meeting, and the local sheriff was in attendance. Everyone was aware of this, and it's not like it was something new, but the FBI planned a roadblock.
And when you say planned, I mean, it wasn't just, well, we saw the opportunity to stop him and we did. No, they cut tree limbs. They set up a classic military L-shaped ambush, and it's
They
called a
had
dead
two,
man's ambush.
yes, they had
They
two surveillance planes. I mean, none of this is spur of the moment. They had no warrants for anybody that day. They
which
had no.
which is extremely important. No arrest warrants had been issued at the time that they stopped Lavoy and the others. Um, okay, so I have to ask this. You mentioned when they awarded these medals, they claimed that he rammed a federal vehicle, pinned an agent underneath it, and was headed to a clandestine meeting. These are all provable lies. Why is the
Correct.
FBI giving official awards based on those lies?
Yes. And their highest awards, honors for inaccuracies, the FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We count on them to be seekers of truth, to be not only defenders, but upholders of truth. And when you cannot trust what's coming from them, it makes you feel like the floor is falling out of the room. Where can you trust? What can you stand on? Can we count on who we are employing to do this for us? And I want to add to what she had to say there. In the FBI Code of Ethics, it says it centers on integrity, respect, and accountability with a strong emphasis on upholding the Constitution and serving the public with fairness and compassion. And if you go through that, they're talking about rigorous obedience to the Constitution. They're talking about respect and dignity for all, compassion, fairness, accountability. I wanted to touch on this. They believe in accountability. The FBI emphasis on taking responsibility for actions and decisions, including their consequences. And that is what I'm asking Director Kash Patel to address, and to not be afraid of admitting that they might have gotten this wrong. and to do a deep dive into the information and to release all of the records so that everyone can see what happened and not leave it in secrecy, because there were lies told under oath. There was so much at the Astorita trial that came about. We
For
were
for
not.
those for
Go
those who
ahead.
don't know about Astorita, I mean it's been a few years, but let's quickly refresh people's memory. There was a question about a couple of shots that were fired that nobody would account for, and one of the FBI hostage rescue team members, Agent Astorista, I'm sorry, Astorita, I'm saying his name incorrectly, was actually put on trial for this, but I think that did the jury say that the evidence was inconclusive?
Right. And part of the reasoning for that, I sat there the whole 4 weeks. There was so much evidence that came out that we could have used in our own trial to prove Lavoie's innocence. But in particular with Astorita, the other officers testified, well, I don't know, it could have been me. It could have been me. And so reasonable doubt was put in the minds of the jurors. He did lie. He was caught lying to his supervisor, hence the charges. They were caught on film removing evidence and taking evidence from an unsecured scene. The scene was not secured for over, what was it, 6 hours about, until the medical examiner showed up, and then she secured the scene. But all the time in between, those officers were molesting that scene and taking and picking up. And so, to this day, they haven't found shell casings in relation to the shots fired that killed my husband. So they disappeared.
Wow. Well, and I know that you had also filed a case against, I believe it was the Oregon State Police and others. And for those who aren't aware of that, that case was dismissed, I believe, on a technicality, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. The attorneys were not responding in the appropriate manner. And so it was finally dismissed. And, you go all this time fighting. You're going around the country trying to garner support and funds to continue. The average American citizen cannot do what President Trump was so able to do, with all of the darts coming his way, with the weaponized government that had been hounding him for how many years. It was the same for us. The government had been weaponized against the people that went to Malheur. They label lynched them in the press. They called them domestic terrorists without any proof whatsoever. And they're continuing to do that with Lavoie and tarnish his name and continue to call him this domestic terrorist when he was not afforded his due process in a court of law. He was murdered that day. Everyone else in those other vehicles were arrested. The charges were brought the next day. The warrants were issued the next day, not that day, the next day. And then they were able to go through the process that the Constitution affords each American citizen. And they were found not guilty by a jury of their peers. So I say, had they had chosen to use a different form of restraint with my husband, in the film, the FBI agent in front of him with the long gun was carrying and had a non-lethal weapon. He could have used that non-lethal weapon to put my husband down.
Yeah, if he was feeling threatened, he could have done that. Mm-hmm. He would be home with us.
Exactly.
He would have been also found not guilty. And he wasn't given that right or opportunity.
Well, and again, it bears repeating. The jury that actually heard the case against those who were arrested that night did not convict them because they were able to hear things that showed them this has been blown out of proportion, and
exactly.
in the court of public opinion it was wildly distorted, but the jury made the right decision, even though it stunned and probably upset some of the powers that be. Now here we are years down the road, and under new management, the FBI is out there doing things. I know that the FBI was weaponized against President Trump. With a new director, I was hoping, I guess like a lot of people, that maybe a new leaf had been turned. Why, after 9 years, is there this awarding of medals? Has anybody given an answer as to why they chose now to do this?
It really makes you wonder the motivation behind it. What are the motives? Why
No, it's almost 10 years. January makes 10 years in just a few months. Why 10 years later are they doing this? And why is one of the people who is trying to enforce scene protection the one to be giving and awarding this when they can clearly know that that's not what happened here, and they're doing it because of this case? They went against all of their own protocols, turning off shoulder cameras, setting up a dead man's walk without any cause. They did not have that. My dad wasn't pulled over for speeding. He didn't speed. He didn't have speeding tickets. He upheld the law. He honored the law. We appreciate and honor police at federal bureau, FBI agents. We want to support people who will uphold truth and defend it for us and protect us and our rights.
We have to have that kind of trust in our law enforcement. And we were so hopeful with the Trump administration and with the people that he was naming in these different positions, whether it was FBI, CIA, or DOD. We were hopeful that they would put an end to the weaponization of this government that we have been experiencing since the Obama administration, because it is the Obama administration, James Comey, Loretta Lynch, and the like, the whole troop there, that had a lot to do with the killing of my husband. They wanted a swift resolution to this problem up in Oregon, and they were authorizing every bit of any kind of means whatsoever, and that's what they did. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary to weaponize the government against these people who were just exercising their First Amendment right with their Second Amendment right to speak. They were not threatening anyone. Nobody was coerced to be in Malheur, or they were free to come and go. The police could have came and went and talked to them. There were other ways to have solved this problem, but they wanted to make an example out of them. There's whistleblower letters out there, Larry Wooten's whistleblower letter. It needs to be looked at, and I hope and pray that Kash Patel will look at this again and do some deep dives on these characters that played a role in this, whether it was Greg Bretzing or Dan Love, James Comey. These are some of the same people that have been involved in the Trump problems all these years. If you look into the organization, the same actors, the same people that they're probably firing now, and for reasons involved in Trump's legal battles, are some of the same characters that were involved back in the Obama administration, doing this to average American citizens on the right side, on the right, conservative people. And this has got to stop. This country needs to stop dividing itself, or we're going to fall. We're going to fall. This hate, this hate doesn't work. Go ahead.
The reason that we are having this conversation today is to help raise awareness. I mean, look, there is no financial incentive in this for you.
No.
You're not trying to get famous or or score clicks on social media. This is about an injustice that was done 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago. It's being reopened, and salt is being poured into the wound. And hopefully this is something that will ignite enough people's consciences that they will reach out and demand some accountability. I know the press release that Mark Herr helped you guys put out calls for people to speak up. This is not the time to sit back and just, it doesn't affect me. It does affect you. Who do people need to be contacting to demand that we have accountability here and transparency on what's going on?
Well, you can go to our website, onecowboystandforfreedom.com. Any of my children who are on Facebook, they can direct you to different places. Mark Herr with CSG has got a whole bunch listed there. You yourself are putting out some information. Pete Santilli has a radio show and a website that you can find some information on. There's hundreds of people trying to be involved in this, because everybody is just shocked, and they're questioning the same thing that Belle brought up. Why now? Why, after nearly 10 years, are you ripping the scab off and pouring salt in our wound and causing this type of pain and anguish. Do you think that the American people forgot what happened? No, we have not. And this just makes us even more angry and disappointed in the hope that Trump brought to this administration and to this government. There was so much hope that things were going to change. And Lavoie doesn't deserve to be forever labeled a domestic terrorist without his day in court, without due process. And there was no proof that he ever was a domestic terrorist. So can we not use that label?
There was never a trial. There was never a conviction. It was all done through propaganda, smearing, trying to manipulate the court of public opinion. And I want to go back to something you had mentioned earlier. If this was truly a standoff, which I unfortunately hear a lot of media outlets, oh, it was a standoff up there. No, it wasn't, because as you mentioned, they were free to come and go. Lavoie surprised me driving all the way to southern Utah with Ryan Bundy to surprise me and appear on my radio show down there. It was such a powerful message that he had to share. I can't tell you how many people came up to me afterwards and just said, I just felt what he was saying about the need for people to stand for freedom and to follow their conscience and,
do it peacefully.
And do it peacefully. Yes.
He was pro law enforcement. He was pro limited government. He was pro Constitution. Yeah. Yeah. He was not a man who was wanted to abolish government in the way it's been set up. He was trying to follow the Constitution, and he respected and admired people who put their lives on the line to protect all of us, whether they're law enforcement, firefighters, or military. We have lots of family in the military. We have lots of family who serve as police officers and firefighters. We're not anti-government.
I distinctly remember Lavoie telling me, good government, proper government is a blessing. Because it protects your rights, and it serves to guarantee that your rights can't be trampled or taken advantage of. But this does not look like good government, and it certainly doesn't pass the sniff test here. I want to thank you for coming on and talking about this. I know that this is reopening old wounds, but I also want the record to be corrected. I think that the lies that accompany these awards are particularly egregious, and I hope that this gets some kind of movement going to at least take a deeper look, and if necessary, correct it. I know that takes courage, but hopefully Kash Patel will be the guy who will step up and do it.
Right. They tried to throw out our case time and time and time again. It wasn't just one technicality. It was over and over and over and over again. The fight was so long and so hard. And Jeanette carried that for so long. We miss him. We want him in our lives. We want him to be the grandfather and the father figure that we knew that he always was and was being then. And we do not hate this government. The rule of law and the beauty of law is so important to uphold. It protects us. But like it says in Proverbs, for whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. In this day of corruption, in our food, in whatever you have, we all the people are looking for purity, for clarity, for truth and integrity. We want it now.
And just as, and we want to see if Kash Patel will do a deep dive into this, but just as we're expecting him to right the wrongs, I want to do the same thing. And in my press release, we inadvertently had mentioned that the town hall meeting was hosted by law enforcement, but it wasn't. It was hosted by local friends and people there. And so we made that correction because we had made a mistake. And that's all we're asking of our government, is to do the same thing, to take responsibility and to own your mistakes. You will have so much more respect from us, the American people, and faith from us and support from us when you can own your own mistakes.
I think one of the things that's changed between then and now is trust in the narrative managers, the mainstream media
Yes.
has dropped like a rock. And
Yes.
hopefully we can penetrate that smoke screen that they were throwing up for so long and help get the truth out there. I mean, I understand it's a tall order. You're working with government and the wheels of change turn slowly, but Jeanette, I wish you the very best on this, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on my program and to talk about this. And let's start a brush fire in people's minds to get the word out there.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone out there listening who have sent their well wishes to our family and have supported us these 10 years.
I invite people to contact any person in position of sharing that word. Contact people of authority or in government. Let them know the truth. Get it out there.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank Jeanette Finicum, Tierra Belle, and Tean, her daughters. Well, here we go. Let's get the word out there. This is
Thank
the
you.
Bryan Hyde Show.